Oh my god. What happened to all of you guys? Chopper, Law, Luffy, Brooks, say something. Speak to me, please. Oh, God, what horrible monster could have done this to you? Oh, right. Yeah, Guys, these are pop figurines. They can't talk to you. They're not even real. Anyway, today's video is going to be about something super special, awesome, spectacular. Are you ready? I sure hope you are, because today's video is going to be all about stones. Actually, that might not be an exaggeration because a few days ago I did that video on the Magu Magu no Mi, you know, Akainu's fruit, and I actually found out that there's a lot of aspiring young geologists and other students of the earth sciences in my audience, so yeah, you might find this pretty interesting. Okay, so Kairoseki Sea Prism Stone is an ore that is found all throughout the One Piece world, although it's pretty rare, and we actually find out in the most recent chapter that it's originally mined. It comes from Wano. Alright? And many people have said, it's like, why not, you know, wait a little while to make this video, because we just found out it's from Wano. We're obviously gonna find more stuff about, like, Sea Prism Stone in this arc, so you should wait a little while. I'm like, well, see, I never made a dedicated video talking about Sea Prism Stone, so I thought, let's cover all the general stuff that we know, and then later on in the arc, if we find out more about Sea Prism Stone, like a big revelation, or what you can do with it, or, you know, a manufacturing, you know, maybe it's like a factory on Wano that, you know, Kaido created to make Sea Prism Stone weapons or something like that, I could always make a part 2 to this video, the same thing I did with the technology video or the bounty video, so that's not really a big deal. So in this video, we're just going to cover everything that we know so far, and I'll throw in some theories, and hey, maybe in a few weeks, I'll find out if I was on the target or if I was just completely, like, way off the mark. We'll see. Okay, so Sea Prism Stone was something that was introduced pretty early on in the story, basically because Oda had to. I mean, he came up with devil fruits. I'm like, these are these magical fruits that are scattered all over the world. All you have to do is eat one, and you have the powers of a god. Or you get to turn into a jacket. You know, it's kind of a crapshoot with these things, but they're pretty powerful if, you know, you get a good one. So it stands to reason that he should also create, like, an antimatter to devil fruits, you know, something that could oppose devil fruit users and weaken them. And also keep in mind, this was before Haki was introduced as well. So by the time the Straw Hats got to Log Town, Luffy was, like, steamrolling all of the major villains. Like, how it worked up to that point was they landed on an island, there was a villain, Luffy beat the crap out of them, moving on to the next island, you know, Buggy, Krieg, Kuro, Arlong. Then you get to Log Town, where Smoker was introduced. And I know Smoker, I know he's sort of like, I don't want to say he's a joke, because he's still a pretty strong character. I mean, he's a vice admiral, he knows Haki and all that. He's got a pretty powerful fruit. It's just that there's just so many more people that were introduced in the world government and the Marines that are stronger than Smoker, so he kind of got pushed off to the wayside. But you have to keep in mind, back during Logtown, Smoker was Mr. Billy Badass invulnerable, because this was the first opponent Luffy could not just, he couldn't beat, he couldn't even hit. You know, because he's turning into smoke, and Luffy's trying to punch him, he's trying everything he can think of, cannot hit Smoker. And at the same time, Smoker introduces this ore called Sea Prism Stone. He has it on the tip of his staff, and he takes it out, and he's smacking Luffy around with it, and Luffy's supposedly, you know, immune to blunt attacks, but these attacks are just fuddin' whackering all over him, and eventually Smoker has him pinned to the ground. He takes his staff, places it right on Luffy's neck, and he's pinning him to the ground, and he can't breathe, and he can't move, and if it wasn't for Dragon showing up, Luffy would have, you know, probably not have survived that. I'm not saying Smoker would have straight up, but he probably would have taken him into custody and stuff. And since then, it's expanded upon where this Sea Prism Stone is essentially the power of the ocean made manifest in a solid. Okay? So it's basically a stone that you can carry around, and anytime it comes in direct contact with a devil fruit user, it, you know, has the same effect as if they were submerged underwater. They become numb, they start to get kind of woozy, and they just eventually, if they keep, you know, in contact with this stuff, they just turn into like a puddle of mush on the ground, right? Now, the Marines, they state that it's a rare material. It's not easy to get your hands on, but I would theorize that the Marines and the world government pretty much have a monopoly on the mining of this really valuable resource. I mentioned this in the last review. It was like, if you think that there's some island in the world in the North Blue or somewhere that just, hey, we found a sea prism stone deposit right under our island. Isn't that crazy? The world government would be there by the end of the week to section off the entire island, and you just like, okay, that's great. We're gonna set up like an oil rig. We're gonna set up a drill over here. He's like, but that's not fair. This is our island. You can't just take over. He's like, yeah, but world government, bitches. So yeah, I mean, this is an extremely valuable resource that the Marines need, not just to fight against Devil Fruit users, but also to restrain them, as well as to coat their ships with. Because Vegapunk figured out that if you can coat your ships with Sea Prism Stone, it's giving off the same energy as the ocean, and it deters sea kings and other things from, attacking you, because if it's lined the under the side of the ships, the sea kings just think it's part of the ocean, so they don't attack you as much, alright? So there's all these different uses for it, so they say it's rare, but the world government, they're not going to run out of it anytime soon. I mean, they're making a bunch of handcuffs out of it. All of Impel Down is filled with the stuff. They have, like, capture nets that are laced with this shit, so it's not very rare. It's rare if you're, like, a normal civilian and you want to get your hands on it, but if you're the world government, if you're a Marine, you should have no problem getting your hands on Sea Prism Stone, right? So let's talk about the exact effect it has on Devil Fruit users, because I have a theory here. You want to know what my theory is? My theory is it's not simply just a rock that just, it's just a rock and if you touch it, okay? For this to actually work, it would have to, like, radiate some sort of energy off of it that negatively affects Devil Fruit users. And it's even kind of stated, not directly, but you can infer from it. If you're gonna lace these battleships with it, and if it mimics the sea, then there has to be some sort of, I don't know, radiation or something emanating from these stones, right? Now, we've seen Sea Prism Stone in a variety of different ways. Ironically enough, though, we've never seen it in its raw form. We've never seen it, like, being dug up from the ground and what it looks like just in its raw state before it's processed, okay? But it's stated that there are things like Sea Prism Stone handcuffs pictured here that, I'm sorry, did we just show an image of Sea Prism Stone handcuffs? Because all I could see was Robin's butt. Okay, anyway, let's try that again. Pictured here, Sea Prism Stone... Okay, this is gonna be a hard video to get through. Right, okay, I'm just gonna shut my eyes. Okay, Sea Prism Stone handcuffs pictured here. The question is, are they entirely made out of Sea Prism Stone, or are they just, like, laced with Sea Prism Stone in some way? Like, is there some way to just maybe take a small part of it and just embed it into the handcuffs, and then if there's this energy or radiation that emits off of it, then that just takes it away from there? Up until the recent chapter, actually, can I open my eyes now? Okay. Up until the most recent chapter, actually, we just didn't know, but now that we find out that it's only the craftsmen of Wano that are able to sculpt Sea Prism Stone down into really small, like, sizes, like to the size of a nail that Hawkins' group used against Law. They pierced him with the Sea Prism Stone nail, and as soon as it hit Law, it had the same effects as if, like, the handcuffs were on him or something. Like, he really started to, like, he couldn't even use his power with just a tiny little nail. It's also, if you can, take it from there, maybe Sea Prism Stone bullets can be constructed in Wano. So, the question really is, how small is small enough that you require an expert craftsman to make? Okay? Because I'm going to assume that these handcuffs right here, they are not, 100% Kairoseki. Alright? They are just, like, maybe regular steel handcuffs, and then they just take a fragment of the raw ore itself and then embed it into the steel. And it's stated that Sea Prism Stone is hard as diamond. Alright, and if you just look at the, the hardness scale here, the Mohs hardness scale, you could see that diamond is, it's pretty tough. Well, at least the hardest diamonds rank a 10 on this scale here. So that's something else to be stated, like why Devil Fruit users, even if they're physically strong, like even if it's like a big buff dude that has a Devil Fruit, you lock him up in handcuffs, why he can't just break out of them. I think that's why Oda included, like, oh no, it's also hard as diamond. It's the hardest substance in the world, pretty much. You can't just break out of it. So when a Devil Fruit user has the handcuffs on them, and it's embedded with the Sea Prism Stone or laced with that, you can't break out of it. But if that's the case, then it would have to be made out of 100% Kairoseki in order to, like, make sure that it's, like, so strong enough you can't break out of it. See, you see where this gets kind of confusing? Now, something else that's interesting is whenever you see a character like just wearing the handcuffs, like Robin had them on, Ace had them on, they didn't seem to be like, mush on the ground. They didn't seem to be like, oh, I can't even move. They seem to be able to be about themselves fairly, well. They can walk and they can talk and everything. It's just that they couldn't use their powers. So that's what lends it to me to believe that it's just like a fragment, or just maybe, I don't know, there might be some way to convert Kairoseki into just like a liquid form, or just like some sort of like, coating that you could just like, cover the material with. And that's not the exact same effect, as like the full effects of Kairoseki, but it's something that can actually deter Devil Fruit users from using their ability, right? Because we've seen time and time again, we've seen like the time during Alabasta when Luffy and the group were in that cage that was lined with Sea Prism Stone bars. When Luffy touched the bars, he was like, oh man, I can't even move. He had that kind of effect. But, Robin's wearing the handcuffs and she can still walk and everything, and she doesn't seem like she's really all that uncomfortable. Maybe it's a training thing. Maybe you can sort of train your body and acclimate it to the point where you still can't use your Devil Fruit power when you're touching Sea Prism Stone, but it doesn't like make you woozy anymore. Like that's the best you could possibly have, because after all, Ace and Robin, they're a little bit older than Luffy, so maybe they had more time to train with it. But no, I think the best way that I can really arrive at this, situation here, the difference between these scenarios, is that there's some way that you can just coat objects with Sea Prism Stone, not just using the actual ore itself. That's the best I got. Okay, now let's talk about Wano here, all right? Because we just found out that the material it originates from Wano. So I'm guessing what Hawkins meant by that is like the largest deposit of Sea Prism Stone in the world is like right underneath Wano. Like maybe you could go into any part of Wano with an axe or a shovel and you could dig down deep enough, and no matter where you are in the country, you'll eventually hit, Sea Prism Stone bedrock. And so like that's the originator of it, but then there's other like veins and deposits of Sea Prism Stone all over the world. It just originates from Wano, or that's the largest deposit of it, okay? So for apparently, thousands of years, the people of Wano have been, sculpting this, and they've learned like a special technique on how to get it down so tiny that you can make nails out of it. Few things interesting about that fact. The people of Wano do not know what devil fruits are. They always believe it's some sort of sorcery or bewitchment. Like, I ate a magical fruit and I received the power to, make people have different clothes. Like Kanemon's fruit or Kanjuro's drawing fruit. They all think it's some kind of sorcery, right? So maybe just through, I don't know. It depends on how many people in Wano have a devil fruit ability, because we know that Shinobu and Kanemon and Kanjuro all had one. We know Lady Toki had one, although that probably didn't originate from Wano. That came from another far-off land, considering the nature of that. But we already have 3 characters in Wano that have devil fruits that don't even know they're devil fruits. So it stands to reason that there's probably another, a few other characters that are originally from Wano that are samurai that have devil fruit powers. Maybe just through trial and error they figured out, like, hey, I ate this fruit and received this magical sorcery power, and now, whenever I touch this mysterious stone, I become weak. So, considering there are clearly devil fruit users in Wano, and considering it's the largest deposit of Sea Prism Stone in the entire world, they probably would have arrived at that conclusion at some point. Now, whether they decided to start crafting things like Sea Prism Stone spears or axes or nails or whatever they did, I'm pretty sure the craftsmen of Wano can make anything, any type of weapon you can imagine out of Sea Prism Stone. They might have just started doing that to fight back against the people that had these bewitchment powers, or they might have done it just because it's a really pretty rock. It's like, oh, this stone is so unique, and the structure of it is so dazzling. We could make sculptures out of this and things. That might be the reason, too. But remember, Wano at the end of the day is an extremely isolationist country. So, I mean, they have vast quantities of the stuff, but there was never any real reason to make, like, we must construct, an entire armory of Sea Prism Stone weapons, axes and swords and spears of the stuff as far as the eye can see, because we are invading the world. That's not what the people of Wano do, right? I also got to bring up at this point something that I've always found kind of weird. If the Marines have access to such a large quantity of Sea Prism Stone, to the point where Smoker, and remember, Smoker, at the beginning of the story, he is a captain, which is a high rank in the Marines, but it's not like a ridiculously high rank, okay? There's many more ranks above captain. Smoker, as a captain, he had a Sea Prism Stone weapon. Okay, he had a, I never, learned how to pronounce this word. I always mess it up. So here, I'm just going to call it a staff. But yeah, he had his staff that was tipped with the stuff. So, by the way, as long as he didn't touch his tip, he was okay in and of himself, right? That's something else that bugs me. It's just like, if you're going to have this stone that has some sort of like radiation effect to it, then even having it on your back, wouldn't that sort of affect you in a negative way? I guess it all comes down to like the size that you use. If it's just a little pebble, not a big deal. If it's this much, okay, that would affect you. Whatever. Anyway, if a captain like Smoker could receive a Sea Prism Stone weapon, and he's stationed all the way out in the East Blue, then there is no reason why all of those soldiers we saw at Marineford, every sword, every spear, everything that they had should have been coated with Sea Prism Stone. And maybe it might have been, it's just it was never really shown that was the case. A few of them knew Haki, and the 6 powers and everything, but yeah, if you have this material, I'm not saying give it out to like every single fodder Marine, here is your Sea Prism Stone weapon. It's not that common that you could just give it out to everybody, but we see a lot of high-ranking members of the Marines that are all wearing the Justice Coat. Remember, if you're wearing the Justice Coat, you already rank higher than an ensign. So they all should have Sea Prism Stone tipped weapons, at least in some variety or some capacity. Even if you want to make, like, there's different kinds of weapons. Even if you want to make, like, the simplest weapon, like, here is a Sea Prism Stone coated knife or dagger, and it's really small, and it's, we can't afford to use all this stuff at once, but here you go. At least have this on your person in case you do ever run across a Devil Fruit user. This at least gives you something to work with. If you're a low-ranking member of the Marines and you don't know armament Haki and you have no protection against them, you might still run across a Devil Fruit user at some point. Here's something to at least defend yourself. Something along that line there. Maybe they did. Maybe all the, officers at Marineford did have Sea Prism Stone weapons. It was just never stated, and it really didn't seem that way. Yeah, okay. So, now getting into Sea Prism Stone bullets. So this was something that was first mentioned, it was mentioned in the manga by Beige during Zou, whenever they were trying to capture Caesar. Caesar was floating away, and Beige was like, "Hey, Caesar, we got Sea Prism Stone bullets, we'll shoot you out of the sky." And Caesar gets really scared, and he's like, "Oh, okay, don't shoot, I'm coming down." So he floats down, and then they reveal, "Oh, we didn't have any Sea Prism Stone bullets, but we do have a Sea Prism Stone tipped spear." And then they take that out, and then that's how they detain Caesar Clown. However, the concept of Sea Prism Stone bullets was, okay, it's something that definitely exists. Beige said it, Caesar was afraid, if it was like a sheer fantasy, something that never could exist, then Caesar would be like, Sea Prism Stone, that stuff doesn't even exist, I'm out of here. I mean, Sea Prism Stone bullets, those don't even exist, I'm cheesing it out of here. He was afraid, and he was a scientist, so he probably realized, like, oh, man, the odds are pretty slim they could have some, but they might actually have some. He has a pretty high bounty. He's a member of the worst generation, and he's all about the guns and everything, and he's a gangster. He's a gang star, so to speak. So yeah, he might actually have some of those. Now, it was also actually seen in the movie, Film Z, or Film Z. Zephyr had a little, like, Derringer pistol that had Sea Prism Stone bullets, and he shoots Luffy with it, and it's like, it drains his power. Okay, so if nothing else, from what we can see, there's a clear difference from the handcuffs that people wear that don't really drain your energy, they just kind of lock your abilities up. Then actually touching it, like the bars in Impel Down or the bars in that cage at Alabasta that, like, drain your ability. Then going to the next step, some type of Sea Prism Stone that can actually get into your body, like can actually pierce your flesh, like the nail that Law was pierced with or the bullet that Luffy was shot with. That's the worst thing that can happen. Because even if it's like a small little fragment of this stuff, if it gets inside your body, you can't use any of your abilities, and you seem to be extremely weakened by that. Now, in Law's case, he might have actually gotten it on the good side of things, because it wasn't a bullet, it didn't really get embedded in his body, and also, he's a doctor, so even if it was a bullet and he got shot, I'm sure Law could have, like, he could have busted out, like, a scalpel or something. I'm sure he keeps medical, equipment on him, and, medical tools. He could have busted out a scalpel, and he could have been, like, commencing operation. Like, he could have maybe dug it out. But if it was just a nail, it has the flat top on it. Law could have just, like, take the nail out. But when Luffy was shot with it, that was like the worst case scenario, right? So at least in the movies, Sea Prism Stone bullets exist, alright? It's probably just the only place in the entire world where those things could get crafted are in Wano. Right? Well, depends on how you view this. If there really is a way to convert Sea Prism Stone into just like a coating, then all you would really have to do at that point is just take a regular bullet or a shell or whatever, and then just coat it with Sea Prism Stone lacquer or whatever, and then pop it into a gun, and boom. Some people have even actually said in the comments when I brought this up in the review, like, it might not actually be practical, even if you, like, you can't just take, like, a piece of rock and then chisel the rock, into a bullet size and then stick it into a gun and expect it to work. It might be too hard. It might not be the right kind of material that's suited to be a bullet. So I'm like, okay, well, in that situation, you could still have a Sea Prism Stone tipped bullet, take one part of the rock, and then just tip it like an armor-piercing round, kind of, you have like one particular part of it that just happens to be made out of Sea Prism Stone, but not the part that, like, the hammer hits when you're firing it. Or you could do the coating method that I mentioned. So, and any number of things could work, but Sea Prism Stone bullets are something that do exist in the movies, and considering what we just found out in Wano, they will probably most likely make an appearance during the arc. Now, let's talk a little bit about other Sea Prism Stone-based weapons. We already know that, like, spears exist and everything. In the last chapter, when Luffy was conked over the head with Kaido's Kanambo, his club, I heard a lot of people thinking, like, could his club be made out of this stuff? Kaido does not need a Sea Prism Stone to screw people over with his weapon, because I like to think that he is so freak show strong that he doesn't even need it. He could just take a club and just boom, and just knock somebody over into the next freaking island. He doesn't need to rely on cheap tricks like that. He doesn't need to cheat with a Sea Prism Stone freaking club. The best he could do is like, oh, okay, I'll just Haki it up and then hit you with it, right? So there you go. Also, by the way, yes, Haki works. Armament Haki allows you to fight against Devil Fruit users that are Logia, but it's not the same thing as Sea Prism Stone, because Sea Prism Stone actually drains the energy out of a Devil Fruit user when used in the correct way, or when, you get hit with a nail or a bullet or something. It locks up their abilities. All Armament Haki does is just allow you to physically hit them if they're a Logia. Okay, so even if, like, Luffy Armament Haki's up his arm and then punches Smoker right in the face, it'll hurt Smoker, but it's not like it'll drain his power away from him. It's not like he gets hit and it's like, oh, I can't make smoke anymore. No, it just means that the one particular spot that Luffy punched with his fist, that part has to stay physical, and he has to, he gets damage from that. Boom! The second that fist leaves, that part can turn back into smoke again. So, but it's still, the damage incurs. So, and also, yeah, Haki can be learned by anybody, even animals. Rayleigh even mentions this. Like, Haki, or willpower, is something that exists amongst all animals. It's just that many people go their entire lives without awakening it. So it's just easier in that sense. Like, here's the Sea Prism Stone dagger that I talked about. It's easier just to take the dagger and use that, aside from, like, learning Haki, because then you got to go through a whole training regiment, and even then you might not... There's different levels of this stuff. Like, Tashigi's Armament Haki is not nearly on the same level as, like, Sabo's Armament Haki, so to speak. So there's different levels to this. So you could be training an armament, but you just might not have a great affinity for it, and you might learn armament, but not good enough. So it's better just to have a weapon, because no matter how strong the Devil Fruit user is, even like, Doflamingo, after Doflamingo was defeated, they chained him up with Sea Prism Stone, and he couldn't move, and he was detained. So it doesn't matter how strong you are, Sea Prism Stone is hard as diamond, and it also has the power to, like, just completely lock up and drain your ability. So there you go. So now I wanted to theorize about some other things that you can make out of Sea Prism Stone. Things that haven't even been mentioned yet. Like bullets are, like, okay, kind of vague. It depends on the canon of that, but the concept of them exists. What other kind of stuff, though, could you create out of Sea Prism Stone to really screw over a Devil Fruit user? Okay? So, I'm thinking here, because we're on Wano, and because Frankie is here, and Frankie is a craftsman, and the best craftsman in Wano can do this kind of stuff with Sea Prism Stone, I would love Frankie to learn how to really craft this stuff, right? And if Frankie gets really good at it to the point where he can, maybe it might turn out like, oh, you're one of the best craftsmen in the country. I taught you the basics, and now you're already being able to make sea prism stone bullets and stuff. I was thinking about an idea of, this is kind of an extension of sea prism stone bullets, but sea prism stone buckshot. If you can get, honestly with this, you don't even need to be a craftsman. I guess you would have to be, because it's so hard. If you could figure out some way to crush sea prism stone down to like a fine powder, or just little tiny pebbles, and you can load that up, and then like a buckshot out of a shotgun, that would add like a wide range, you know, maybe more close range, but a wide range of damage. And if a devil fruit user gets hit by that, they're basically done, because it's not just like, oh, I got shot with a nail, or I got shot with one bullet. I mean, yeah, getting shot with a bullet's a pretty bad thing. You got it embedded in your flesh, but you could always maybe dig, if you can manage to dig that one bullet out somehow, then you'll be fine. You'll be back to the way you are. I mean, except for the bullet wound, but you know what I mean. But if you get like buckshot, or like it's just like all this like little tiny like scraps or pebble or shrapnel of sea prism stone all over you, you're screwed. You can't dig all that stuff out of you. It might be possible that even like, because the nail was pretty tiny, guys. That nail was really tiny. So if a nail was enough to drain that much energy out of Law, then a little tiny fragment of sea prism stone, if you were forcing it down a user's throat or something, they swallowed it or something, and if it's in their body at all, that's going to directly nullify the devil fruit power. So there you go. That's one ability I had. I also thought, I mean, this is a little bit more abstract, but it'd be really cool if Frankie could combine that power with like the Gao cannon or something. You know, because the Gao cannon, all that is just pressurized air, and then it just released all at once. You know, Gao ho, and then just blow. And we don't get to see the Gao cannon too much. We get to see it more in the anime than in the manga, but even then we don't get to see it too much. But how devastating would that be if Frankie figured out a way to add that to the Sunny's weaponry? Or just going back to the Frankie Shogun, adding it to the Franken sword, the Franken sword, or with that bike, the FRU-4, if he added like, you know, spiked tire treads made out of sea prism stone, this really hard substance to the wheels of that thing, like spikes coming out of the wheels, and he's just running devil fruit users over, get out of my way, super! He's firing bullets off. I mean, that would be really cool to come up with all that stuff. Sea Prism Stone chains, I think that's a concept that already exists, because during Impel Down they had those capture nets, and they were basically prison rounds. They shot out like net guns, but the nets were coated with Sea Prism Stone or embedded with it, and then if it hits a Devil Fruit user, they can't just use their powers to squeeze through the net. If they're a Logia, they're trapped. So that kind of stuff already exists. I mean, a Sea Prism Stone chain, you know, like, if you're going with the coding method, that would be fine. The embedding method, that would be fine. But making an actual chain out of 100% Karyoseki, that just seemed like it would be more of a pain in the ass. You know, like coding it or embedding it would do just fine. Doflamingo was all chained up, you know, during his journey to Impel Down, and he's still chained up in level 6. I doubt, like, all the chain is made out of 100%, because that would be a pain to make each individual ring of a chain in the world of One Piece, which isn't, like, super highly industrialized to the point where you're making it out of 100% Karyoseki. So yeah. Other than that, I think that's pretty much everything in just like a general sense I wanted to discuss. What are your thoughts on this? Let me know about like the coding methods and all this stuff. Like, there's different varieties. Do you think there's like the radiation that's coming off of it that's affecting it? I mean, there would have to be, because of the whole coding your ship method with that. The Sea Prism Stone handcuffs, are they made out of 100% of this stuff, or are they just like a little fragment in there? Let me know. Oh, and I wanted to make sure before we leave that I can show you my stone. Yeah, are you ready to see my stone? Okay, here it is. Now, don't worry, it's nothing disgusting. I'm like, okay, whoa, Tekking, what are you talking about here? Like, we were talking about anime for a second. Now you're bringing, this is moving by so fast. You know, like, are you gonna show us like your kidney stone or something? Like, no. Okay, so when I was in elementary school, in the playground, I just dug around the wood chips in the playground, you know, as you do when you're a kid, and I found this mineral this rock underneath the playground, and this stuff was everywhere. Like I was just dig like an inch under the ground, and all of a sudden there's this black rock everywhere. And I actually got in trouble for that. I got in trouble for digging under the playground. They were like, you can't be doing that anymore. But I found this stuff, and I really did genuinely feel like I discovered a brand new element. You know, I was like Senku from Dr. Stone, be like, oh, I discovered this brand new element, this new mineral. And so, because I'm me as a child, I actually went and looked up the periodic table of elements, and I was going through all the, because I didn't even understand how the periodic table really worked at that point. Like the place where each of those elements are placed on the table, there's a reason why they're put there. It's not just like, well, we discovered a new element, let's just throw it right next to sodium. You know, there's a reason why it's structured that way. But I didn't know that, so I just looked at the last element, and it was, I think, number 118. So I literally did this. Element number 119, guys, Crawfordium. I never thought I would get a chance to share this with you guys, but hey, you never know. Maybe sometime, if you guys want to, you know, if you want to know, I could also show you my entire fantasy world that I came up with one day. Yeah, that's something else maybe we could do. Okay, yeah, have a great night, everybody, and like I said, if any big developments happen with Sea Prism Stone later on in Wano, I don't think it's gonna happen, like, in the very next chapter. I didn't want to wait. Maybe it will. Maybe in the next chapter we'll find out all about Sea Prism Stone. I don't know, but, we probably will before Wano's out, and if it's enough stuff to make a new video about, I'll do that too. So thanks for watching, everybody. This will be Tekking101 signing out. Anything to say, Law? Chopper? You wanna sign out? Do anything? No? Guys, come on. You talked to me last night for like 3 hours. Come on.